we're here on WCAP. I gotta tell you, I am soaked to the bone. I forgot my umbrella. I'm running into the station. It is pouring out. I don't know if, you just get that really, really soaked to the bone feeling, or you don't want to move because all of your clothes are wet. So since we can't sit here, and believe me, you do not want me to sit here and do the show without these on, because I've gained a ton of weight. We're not that kind of program. We're a family show, but it is awful out. It's just really pouring down, cats and dogs. We are, and it kind of fits the mood for the last week. I think a lot of people were shocked at the death of Robin Williams. Today we hear Lauren Bacall. Loved Lauren Bacall, Bogey and Bacall. I don't know, it just almost seems like it. There are days you feel like it just should rain. It should just rain today. I'm going to focus just in the beginning of the show here, in the first half, a little bit on this whole Robin Williams topic and suicide and suicide prevention, all that. It's going to be interesting, though, and we have a guest with us that's going to be very interesting to chat with. And those of you that may have people in your lives that this may help, hope you'll tune in. Or yourself, maybe. On the back half, we'll talk a little bit about current events, some things going on in the world, the market basket situation, as always. But right now, we have Eileen Davis with us, and Eileen is with Call to Talk. Thanks for joining us, Eileen.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. I have to tell you, this has been, I would say, my first level of go-to therapy. This and chocolate. And, there are certain foods as well, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, too, that elevate your mood. Besides, like, dipping into a huge thing of Ben & Jerry's, talking. I mean, anytime anything has happened, and, of course, a lot of us, you can't get into your 40s without having experienced something. Either you lost a job, or, you lost a house, or, something has happened to you. Everybody sort of has these levels of, what do they do to coping mechanisms. And I honestly think talking is one of the best. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to teach that to my son. He's 6 years old, and I try to, when something happens, even minor, I try to say to him, okay, so let's talk about it. Let's talk some more about it, especially with boys, because they don't always communicate as much. Tell me all about Call to Talk and what the idea is behind that.
Well, you mentioned a really good point, Casey. You bring up a lot of good things already in what you just said. But first, let's just start with Call to Talk. Call to Talk is actually a new mental health emotional support helpline that opened up just last December, as early as last December, serving the entire Middlesex County, so even your folks up there in Lowell. We're physically located in Framingham. We're a direct service of the United Way of Tri-County down here. Most originally set up to serve the Metro West area, but quickly expanded to serve all of Middlesex County. We welcome callers who do want to talk about anything that is on their minds. And as you mentioned, loss really encompasses a huge variety of subjects. Like you mentioned, loss of finances, loss of a relationship, loss of mobility, physical well-being, loss of a job, loss of even feeling like how you used to feel. So loss really sort of nails it on the head. And although talking is very important, it doesn't really help if you don't have people that are there to listen to you. People are there to listen to you.
Well, I will say, though, a lot of us do talk to our pets. But it's certainly better to have people listening that can respond.
A combination of that would work. Pets are known to be very therapeutic, and they certainly won't talk back to you. But in their own way, as well as listeners do, pets can also just validate your feelings and be there for you, not to judge you, to be there to love you back unconditionally, and to really be there for you and witness when you are in your most lowest, painful, emotional moment. So listeners as well as pets can serve that purpose. But here at Call to Talk, we do have trained call takers who are here to listen to people when they do want to communicate their feelings and their losses and whatever they're going through.
And how, are you a suicide hotline as well?
So We are a mental health emotional support line, but our call takers are trained to assess each and every caller for their level of risk for suicide. And Call to Talk is a new member of the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is a network of crisis centers, suicide prevention crisis centers throughout the country. So yes, we are.
And what was your first reaction when you heard about Robin Williams?
Well, probably similar to most people, because Robin Williams was known to just about every person cross-generationally. Unlike some of our other high-profile suicides in the past few years, he was really known by everyone. And even though there are people now after the fact that have talked about his struggles through the years and his depression and his abuse of substances, there's still no one that has come in contact with this news that didn't stop and say, oh no, not Robin Williams. There was such an abruptness.
Yeah, I saw it on the TV when I walked in the door. I was out and our TV had been left on. I walked in, I saw Robin Williams dead, and I said to myself, oh my gosh, he probably had a heart attack. I mean, I think there's, obviously everybody's talking now about the stigma, but how would you describe, as someone that is worked with and trained in clinical depression and all of that, obviously you're not a doctor, but how would you describe to the average person what this feels like? Because I know there's a lot of us saying, well, he had so much. He had, everybody loved him. There's a lot of us, I mean, myself included, you love me, you hate me. It's one or the other, and there's a lot of us, I don't think anybody can say what Robin can say, which is so many people just absolutely loved him, and he had obviously the money. What is it that can get you to that point? How can you describe this to those of us that can't really have trouble wrapping our heads around this?
Well, you're right. I can't speak for what Robin Williams felt, but I can tell you that what some of our callers describe is, regardless of the supports they have or people that really are alone and isolated in the world, there is a feeling that overwhelms them of complete hopelessness, just complete despair, and that anybody around them is going to be hurt and burdened by them. So the feeling that it was a selfish act or was narcissistic is actually not at all, because the person at risk does not believe that there is anybody there that can actually lend support for them. When people have an illness like cancer, or even Robin Williams himself did have some heart issues, and he was known to have a very big operation just a few years ago at the Cleveland Clinic. People look sick. You have chemo, your hair falls out, you look weak, you look tired. People who struggle with suicidal ideation hide it very, very well. It's a very personal feeling. It's very hard for them to reach out and talk to anybody about it. It's part of the illness. Part of the illness makes you turn inward and not want to talk about it. So nobody really knows, and that's why, again, it's such a surprise and shock to everyone around him. Now, I'm sure that they're looking back. Monday morning quarterbacking is pretty easy to do. There are people that will have seen signs in him, and as well as other ones that have taken their lives.
How many calls do you get there, say a week? And is there a particular time of day? Because I will tell you that for myself, and I'm a very high-charging, kind of person. I'm very busy all the time, involved in a lot of things. It isn't until, the nighttime when finally my entire house is quiet, and my son, my 6-year-old, is in bed, and I can just I start reviewing everything. And honestly, I have to tell you, that is when things start to bubble up that would bother me. I'm just like, I can't believe that guy said that this morning, or, I can't believe that wasn't taken care of, and I had asked this person to do this, and, just little things. And, that's when things start kind of going around, is, I would say, from, 1 a.m. until 3, when I finally fall asleep. But, is it are you 24 hours there, or what is the
We are. We have the ability to respond to people 24 hours. And typically, you're not alone. I mean, people in the night that can't sleep.
Do you get more calls at night?
Typically, traditionally, as the day goes on, the call volume does increase. One of the symptoms of depression can be insomnia, and feeling alone in the darkness when you feel everyone else is sleeping, does make you feel sort of alone. But days like this, like you mentioned earlier in the broadcast, when people are inside, and wintertime, when people are a little more strapped inside.
And I think there's actually a physical thing with the light for some people in winter. There's not as much sunlight. But the typical caller that would call you, how long would their phone call last?
That typically varies too, but I'd have to say on average a call is about 15 minutes or so. Talking about your feelings and what's going on can be an exhausting thing. And one of the benefits of the exercise of doing that is, it takes energy to sort of plan your suicide or contemplate what you would do. So a phone call actually decompresses a person enough and de-escalates them enough to actually give them pause, to have to actually keep them most safe for a while.
I like that idea. I think that's important. I think anybody that finds themselves starting to feel this way, what's wonderful about this is it is anonymous, and I like the idea that you guys are out there call to talk, that they can just call you and they can just talk, and they can say, my wife left me, the mortgage is coming up on my home, I've got, whatever it is, and what are the people that you have there? I mean, are there, what does their training say to do when someone calls and says, I want to kill myself? I mean, what do you say to that person?
Yeah, well, obviously that's something that walking off the street people are not ready to deal with. But our training is pretty robust, and our volunteer call takers here have so much to be proud of as they not only sign up to do this work, but they do commit to a very extensive training preparation before they even get on the phone. So everything from understanding, in depth of what we're talking about today and understanding the subject of suicide, and everything from there on, how to answer the phone, how long to talk, what to say, what not to say, how to do that risk assessment I mentioned.
Well, let's actually get into a little bit of that, because I'm just, I'm thinking about the person that might be out there right now. Obviously, this whole thing with Robin Williams has raised the awareness. I think many of us are saying to ourselves now, gee, that friend of mine, Mary or Jim or Joe, I ought to check in on them, because there are people that we all know and we're all friends with in our lives, and we say, so geez, you know what, maybe, because I guess there's that feeling that almost had somebody been on, and I think one of the counselors had said this on TV, was had somebody been there with him 24/7, they might have been able to sort of talk him through it, get him out the other side, and what do you say if you have a friend in this situation? What are some of the things you say, and what do you not say to them?
Well, it's funny that you asked that question, because we've seen a huge uptake in people calling concerned about other people, not just for themselves. And that is one of the biggest gifts that this program can do, as well as Call to Talk can do, is that we can continue with, remind ourselves that that's the biggest thing you can do for someone that you love or that you care about. When you see them struggling, that you can listen to them, compassionately, and offer some kindness, and just that connection, just knowing that someone is there for them and looking out for them, whether they're physically there or they promise to call them in an hour or tomorrow or after dinner or...
So let's get into some of the phrases. What are some of the phrases you don't want to say?
Well, you don't want to say things like, don't worry about it, it'll be better tomorrow, everybody has this going on, it's going to be okay. You're going to really want to validate people's feelings.
So that's interesting. So those are the kinds of things that, I might have thought to have said, don't worry about it, or it's going to be all right. And you're saying that's not good, because what does that do? Like deny that the importance of what they're feeling? Is that?
It sort of trivializes it.
Okay.
We don't know, really, in fact, that it will be better tomorrow. And if you want to be a trusted confidant for this person, and you don't want to say something that's misleading.
Too cliche and
true. Yeah. I mean, you want to say things more like, I can see why that is so bothersome to you. I can see why this makes you feel this way. Please tell me more. Tell me how this makes you feel. Help me better understand what you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe together, we can work towards getting some resources together. Maybe we can strategize about what your options might be.
Okay. That's interesting. That's definitely different than saying, it's going to be okay, or don't worry, or, to say, you know what, that I can understand why this is upsetting you. So if this is something that, in your own mind, you think somebody's kind of blowing out of proportion, you shouldn't approach it that way. You should actually say, yeah, I can understand why that upsets you.
Sure, it might be something.
Because in their mind, it's a valid concern.
Right. It might not be a concern for you if the same thing happened to you, but it's definitely a concern for them, and their feelings are what's important at this point.
Yep. Oh, I love that. That's great advice. Why don't also let's give the phone number out that people want to call or can call, and that you're saying you're 24 hours, right? And
yes,
you do service the Lowell area.
Yes.
What is the number for Call to Talk?
So, yep, there's two ways to access the program. The local number is 508-532-CALL, which is also 2255. And as I said, we are part of the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline Network, and that has a toll-free number associated with it. So that would be 1-800-273-TALK, which is also 8255.
Okay, that's great information. And you have a website as well, I believe?
Yes, you can visit the United Way of Tri-County website, which is www.uwotc.org. And actually the Call to Talk information is right there, right now on our home page.
Okay. This is great information. I especially like, how to talk to people. Is there anything else we should know about what not to say?
I think if you lend people an ear, a validating, compassionate, non-judgmental ear, and you are there to connect with them and be there for them in good times and not so good times, you can't really go wrong.
I like the non-judgmental part. Because, I find that some of my best friends are the ones that, I can just talk to, and they're not going to say, oh, you should have seen this coming.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have taken that project on, or, something like that. So,
simply connecting with people can actually save a life.
That's great. Well, thank you, Eileen. I appreciate your coming on. Eileen Davis is with Call to Talk, and they are connected with the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. This is Casey's Corner show on this rainy Wednesday afternoon. Thanks for joining us, Eileen. We're going to take a break. We'll return on the back half.
Real interviews, tough questions, the straight scoop and direct